I know we're cutting into your lunch break, and at the same time, we have a very fantastic and fabulous topic to talk about. So we'll make sure that all the panelists, we try to get as much information, input, and advice from them prior to the break for lunch. Just want to start off with a quick discussion that I had just about 2 days back. So within our breakout session in the in EY's office, we were talking about SMAC as a concept. You know, all of us have heard of SMAC since last 4-5 years. We talk of social mobility, cloud, analytics, and we recently did a survey of about 200 CIOs across India. And one key theme was emerging that it's no longer just a SMAC. You can't really isolate social from analytics, from a mobility, from a cloud. They're all converging together. So if you look at social, the whole concepts of social CRM, if you look at mobility, the whole aspects of the corporates making great use of mobility from a consumer standpoint, from running advertisements and trying to understand what's the footprint, what users are doing. If you look at analytics, the whole feed into sentiment analysis, the whole concept of predictive analytics, we've come a long way, but you cannot isolate all four of them from each other. And that's something which we're going to cover as part of this discussion for next 45 minutes. So why don't I start with Jayanta? So Jayanta, can you probably enlighten the group and tell us that if we have to, corporate has to select a cloud service provider, be it from a mobility standpoint, be it from a cloud services standpoint, what are the various considerations that you will have before selecting such a service provider?
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Jayanta Prabhu. I'm the CTO for SR Group. I want to share some of the insights from business side, what's happening in business today. See, one side, what is happening is that technology is changing very fast, and we have never seen before this kind of changes. And second thing is that new apps are getting launched every day, and all the SR users, they're used to using these new apps for the daily life. And users are using consumer apps in daily life, like they're using Dropbox, they're using mail services and other apps, and they're expecting same in the enterprise landscape also. And they're expecting the same kind of experience when they're using enterprise apps. And senior management in SR particularly, they exposed to technology, means all the CEOs, CFOs, they started talking about cloud without going to nitty-gritty. They know how cloud works, how mobility works, and what is the benefit of that. And technology requirements, all these things are, it's not driven by IT today. Means people are coming with the new requirements, and business users, they have started driving the technology, and just IT is a facilitator who is providing the technology, maybe in the cloud and by engaging with the third-party service provider. And one of the objective of from business side is that they want to engage and they want to better the communication with all the employees, vendors, partners, and for that reason they want to roll out more and more mobility solutions so that quickly they can reach out these people. And cloud and mobility, these two technologies are disruptor today in the market, and a lot of transformative engagement initiatives started on this particular platform. And one thing what we have done in SR particularly is that whenever there is a new requirement comes from business or initiated by IT, we seriously evaluate cloud technology, and serious discussion is happening with all the cloud service providers. And some of the factors of what we evaluate during the cloud solution today is that in SR we have signed multiple enterprise level agreements for licenses. When I'm going ahead with the cloud implementation, how it is going to impact, means what is the additional licenses we need to procure, or what I need to do with the OEM partner to engage them also when we are rolling out the cloud technology. And second side, we are spending a lot of time on exit strategy. See, going ahead with the cloud is very important, and how we are going to exit, means how cloud service provider, they're going to hand over the data to you, and how to avoid vendor lock-in. Means since there is no standardization in cloud platform today, when I want to move from one cloud service provider to second cloud service provider, means how seamlessly I can move. Means what is the exit strategy and what is the vendor lock-in, how I can avoid that thing. And since SR is a global organization, we have around 200 companies and we are present in 25 countries with around 65 assets. And how I can seamlessly drive the process standardization. Means some of the example I'm going to share later how we have done that. Means all those things are very important factors when we evaluate any cloud platform or cloud service provider. And one part is a DR. Means when we are signing a cloud vendor today, where is going to host the data. Means it's hosted in India, outside India, what is the DR setup they have, what kind of skill set they have, means how reliable is my service. All those things are very important when we are evaluating any vendor. Means we have done that, and one of the key point today in SR particularly, around 80% applications are running on the virtualization platform, and some of the critical applications which is running on cloud. We have started this journey around 5 years back, and a lot of benefits we got. Subsequently, I share that information.
Thank you so much, Jayanta. Appreciate your inputs. Sunil, let me turn back to you and probably have your views for the audience. So when you decide to move to a cloud, I mean, how do you select or how do you plan that this particular system or this particular process, or say HR or ERPs or certain specific processes on a supply chain side, how do you decide what is what is the most beneficial process that you should probably move to cloud?
Thanks, Nitin. Just for a quick introduction, I am a CIO, Group CIO for RPG Group that comprises of various companies like KC International, CH Tires, RPG Life Sciences, Zensar Technologies, etc. Generally within the group, we look at non-Zensar group because Zensar being in IT services and the rest of the companies being brick and mortar or manufacturing businesses, the requirements are drastically different. Fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of applications or a lot of technologies in RPG Group are due for transformation or renewal. So from that perspective, we are at a logical point when we should be looking at many of these decisions, and we should be taking a call with respect to leverage the latest technologies, latest available options in the market, and from a 3 to 5 year perspective kind of a horizon. While looking at various options which are available in the market, so by default as a strategy, we are looking at software as a service wherever the options exist. Naturally, advantages are known to everyone, pay-per-use or scalable service model, all the DR and backups and everything taken care of. I am looking at more cloud from the perspective of getting a quantum leap into the quality of IT services that we provide, and not just an incremental transformation, or maybe not just as a technology benefit or not just as an economic benefit, but leveraging the latest. Luckily, the business is at a juncture wherein they have realized the disadvantages of customizations. They have realized the importance of having standard, scalable, world-class, benchmarked business processes. So from that perspective, the job is easier to sell a SaaS kind of a solution. The rest of the challenges are for us to fight out in terms of integration or in terms of connectivity or security, etc., for us to evaluate and then give a right business advice. But the first choice is always to go for SaaS model. If that is not available, then naturally look at the platform as a service. The whole ball game really starts when the application strategy is clear in terms of the core solutions. So if the clear strategy exists for the ERP or the core line of business solutions, then the rest of the peripheral solution strategy becomes far more easier. Not many ERPs still available, or whatever platforms we have been using since long time, whether it is SAP, JDE or Oracle, etc., still not available to that extent or with that kind of a scalability, reliability, purely as pay-per-use model in cloud. So naturally you have to host it in-house, not available as a SaaS. Of course, it can be available as an infrastructure as a service, a platform as a service, but then it becomes more like a way of financing than the real advantages like it gives in case of SaaS solutions. So that's how we look at it generally. The moment the strategy is clear in terms of ERP and the peripheral line of business integrated solutions, the rest of it has to move in the cloud come what may. So the question is more the other way around. Instead of looking for good candidates for cloud deployment, why not cloud has to be the justification, whereby you can give quantum leap, as I discussed earlier, in terms of quality of services. Because many a times in order to push a solution, we are always looking at its incomplete economics. We are not really looking at a complete cost of ownership over a period of 3 or 5 years. And many a times we know the enterprise solutions last even much longer than that. And we go through several upgrade or re-implementation cycles. So real cost of the solution is never put together on a piece of paper, wherein we are factoring in all the DR and the backups and the whole services piece around that. And many times, if at the time of initial launching of the solution, initial selection of the solution, that complete view is not taken, the DR, pushing DR at later stage becomes very difficult. And we know how critical the IT solutions are being these days, or people cannot afford any kind of downtime on any of the solutions. So pushing for any of these at a later point of time is a huge problem for us as technology individuals, technology specialists. So from that perspective, SaaS always as a first choice. If not, then naturally platform or infrastructure as a service, etc. Not looking at a purely financing model, but looking at a huge quantum jump in the quality of services that we provide to the business. And naturally, why not cloud is always a solution to be answered first. Naturally, various criteria do come into picture in terms of what is the real requirement of scalability, what size of user community are we looking at, what kind of integrations we are looking at, where all the user community is spread out, is it going to get integrated, is it going to be for customers, suppliers integration, or is it purely in-house solution, and what kind of feature scalability also we are looking at, etc. So all these usual criteria do apply while doing all these evaluations.
Neil, thank you so much for your thoughts. Now we see from a user organization as well as from a service provider point of view, we essentially talk of the same terms: flexibility, reliability, productivity, security. What happens in a cloud environment? I mean, what happens to the traditional data center business that's happening? So why don't we understand from Karan two things. One is, what's his view from the whole move to cloud, the whole cloud service provider as a business, and does it really is it really shrinking the traditional data center business, number one, and the whole concept of software managed data centers, and how are they revolutionizing the whole IT service delivery?
Hi, Nitin. Good afternoon, everyone. So it's a very interesting question, and well, yes. Let me answer the first part, right? In terms of how the cloud has revolutionized the data center industry and what it means to, the end customers, what it's delivering today. So since we began our cloud journey in 2008, which is when we started offering cloud services within the country, a lot of service providers, traditional data centers at the time, like NetMagic, the question was, do we even want to go down this route? Do we want to start offering a cloud service? Is it going to start cannibalizing existing colo business? Is it going to start cannibalizing existing bare metal business? And the decision was, it was fairly self-evident at the time, where if you don't do it, you're going to be dead in 10 years. And today, there isn't a single data center in the country today that doesn't have a cloud offering to various degrees of sophistication for the market today. And that cloud offering could be infrastructure or platform or software as a service to varying degrees. Most of the audience today, sooner or later, if they haven't already made the journey into the cloud, are going to be porting at least one or more applications into the cloud very, very quickly. And it's not just the enterprise segment, it's the SMB segment as well. And they're adopting cloud across a multitude of flavors. So it's a very interesting Gartner statistic which talked about adoption of hybrid cloud. And it showed adoption of hybrid cloud based across customers who already had a hybrid cloud, or were considering it, or were not considering it at all. And across industry segments and across industry verticals, you found that the number of people that had a hybrid cloud were growing significantly. The number of people that were considering it or were about to invest in a hybrid cloud were growing significantly. And the number of people for whom a hybrid cloud wasn't on the horizon at all was dwindling significantly. So it comes down to a logical progression of technology. And I think most people in this room, no one's adopting technology for technology's sake. And I think if you look at this panel as well, across service providers and across, medium and large enterprises, you're adopting technology today because it will either significantly lower your total cost of ownership and enhance your ROI, as Neil alluded to, either in terms of direct costs or indirectly by reducing your cost of operations. And that's true regardless of whether you're a service provider like us or whether you're an end consumer like some of the other people on this panel or some of the people in this audience. Now let's extrapolate that into the word software defined, right? We're slowly starting to talk about software defined everything. Software defined networks is something that everyone's talking about today. Software defined storage is something that also a lot of people are talking about. And again, it comes down to a logical progression. So I don't agree that your software defined phenomenon is a revolution, but it's a logical progression and it's an evolution of your technology stack today. So what will it give you? Today, our end customers in the cloud don't necessarily care that NetMagic is at the forefront of adopting software-defined technologies. We've got software-defined networks, we've got software-defined storage. They care about what it can deliver to them. So what they care about is the feature set you're being able to provide, whether it's a tiered storage offering which allows customers to define the storage and the IOPS. So for example, you've got a database that needs 5,000 IOPS but only 200 gigs of space, but you've got an archival server which needs 10 terabytes of space but only about 300 IOPS. Now, it's a lot easier to be able to deliver something like that with a software-defined storage, not so much with traditional hardware-based, rigid, inflexible platforms.
Thank you so much, Karan. Uday, from your perspective, the moment this is a radical shift from how we used to manage our IT operations before and how we will manage our IT operations in a typical cloud environment. So we historically had ITIL-based IT service management related processes. So how does this change? How do this disruptive newer SMAC 3.0, the cloud, the digital aspects, and what kind of impact do you think it will have on the IT services and the whole service delivery aspect?
Right, great question. Also, one of my favorite topics in terms of being in the service provider world. So good afternoon, everyone. Looking at IT service management, which is really necessary to provide what Neil was saying as a reliable infrastructure to the business, this is going through a big change because of cloud mobility, and especially if you add also another factor, which is the Internet of Things. So basically a mobile doesn't have to be a mobile or smartphone. You can take a SIM card and put it into anything. You can put it into a car, or you can Wi-Fi enable any of the devices, and it just greatly expands the number of entities which will be connected into your IT environment, and how this is going to be managed in terms of a service provision. Another change which is happening in the mindset of people, and especially for the innovative solutions, is that they expect these solutions to be brought out very quickly. So the turnaround time expectations are very short. People expect that any new features will be immediately incorporated in whatever solution you have, and there will be rapid new releases which you will get for all the applications. So this is having an impact both on the application side and on the infrastructure side. On application side, already agile methodologies have been in play for many years, and they are getting a stronger foothold so that people can address these shorter turnaround time requirements. And what we are seeing is that on the infrastructure side, we are seeing the emergence of DevOps, which is basically bringing the development and the sysadmin together so that we can do faster release management, real-time release management, and provide meet the shorter turnaround time expectations. But we have to keep in mind that ultimately the game is about reliability. As innovative solutions come into the core IT of the organizations, they have to be reliable, they have to be scalable. So there has to be a marriage between ITIL processes and between DevOps. And that is going to be one of the challenges which will face all the service organizations as to how do they merge these two things together. Because there is still no formal standard yet available which says how these two things can be brought in together. Another process change which will come in a big way is in terms of the information lifecycle management. So if you take in the mobiles and Internet of Things and the amount of data that is going to be generated, that is all very good from the point of view of analytics and from the point of view of providing additional intelligence to the business. But how is this information going to be managed? And the whole ILM process will have to be completely revamped so that this whole data can be managed not just for few months but years and years together, right? We are talking about speeds of terabytes per minute in which data is going to be generated. And in my opinion, the third very important aspect which will have to be looked at is how the financial management is done for the whole IT infrastructure. So there was a time, or in many companies there is still a time, where there is a fixed capex and there is a budget that the CIO has, and basically you can't spend more than that because whatever is sitting in your data center is what you have. You can use it as much you want. Maybe you will spend a bit more on bandwidth. But now with cloud, you have possibility of provisioning more and more systems. With mobile devices, people are roaming around the world with smartphones which have got quad-core processor and 3 GB memory and all kind of applications. So how are you going to manage and control the costs? And again, that is a process which will have to be defined and which will have to be implemented very strictly in the organizations. Otherwise, instead of saving costs, you will find that very soon we are spending too much, or we don't even know how much we are spending, right? So I think these are the three critical areas. And the fourth one is because of the real-time online nature of the business expected by people who use mobiles. They expect to be able to use the phone and the applications anywhere. So the whole end user support paradigm will have to change. Over the years, what has happened is that the number of tickets that an end user raises has been brought down to less than 1 ticket per year. And now what is expected is that with the proliferation of various applications on mobile, that number of tickets could go back to 1 ticket per month, which we are looking at a 12 times increase in the number of tickets, and combine them with whatever automation you can put in. So it's going to require a big management of this whole incident management process, and to see how again that can be brought back to 0.8 or half incident per year, right? So I think these are the 4 key factors that I can see will challenge us.
Uday, thank you. If I have to sum it up, the whole concept of do it yourself rather than do it for me. So asking someone, business user asking do it for me rather than your initial whole focus of do it yourself by providing him all the auto provisioning, app stores and picking that up. And now as I hear you, it may again go back to do it for yourself. And the challenge is actually how do you again go back to simplify that process. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Chid, I understand you're from a business where you make sense of data on mobiles. And actually the whole concept of software-driven data centers, you actually do a software-driven marketing strategies for organizations. So while you work on this, in your experience, how do you manage the sensitive data? Because almost everyone at every point in time speaks of the security of my confidential data. So what are your thoughts or your experiences in terms of managing the whole sensitivity around confidential information?
Good afternoon. My name is Chidambaram. I work for a company called DataZoo. And as you said, we do programmatic marketing, which means we collect a lot of data. It's a very powerful question because the concept of sensitivity is not something new. Just because from all of the speakers who preceded me, which is a good thing because then we can summarize and say he said that, she said that, which is good. There's a lot of intent on flexibility. Companies have to move to cloud to be flexible. Right? There's no choice, absolutely no choice. Now you can continue to argue and say my data is sensitive, I won't move to the cloud, then you lose the race. And there's absolutely no question that you lose the race. Right? So you've got to have a mindset change. A quick illustration to an example, person X goes to Y and says, I want to live forever. And the religious leader Y says, get married. Person X very thrilled, so will I live forever? No, no, your perception will change. Right? So we got to move with what is happening, and that is, cloud is there's a lot of data that we collect. There's a lot of quick results people expect out of the data that you collect. So you have to move to a cloud to be flexible. Now just because you move to the cloud and just because you move to a public domain, it doesn't really mean that sensitive or security is a new or an added dimension. It always existed. Security has 2 pieces to it. One is your process side and another is your technology side. Process side always existed. Somebody was mentioning in the morning, one of the speakers, A person walks out of the office with the laptop, leaves it open, people can access information. What security is that? Just because you move to the cloud, a person can still take something and go. It's still highly insecure. So organizations deal with this in two ways, and the way we deal with it is, and I'll give you a couple of examples, the way we deal now and the way we deal with it when I was in Nokia before I moved to DataZoo. Today, when it comes to security, we're very careful about what we do with the data that we collect. Right, so the business we are in is, we look at the transactions people do and try and figure out what people like or don't like. On one extreme is Google, where you go search for something and your intent is clear. Other extreme is Facebook, where you tell them what your likes and dislikes are. Everything comes in between. The rest of it comes in between, where with the transactions that you do, we try and figure out what you like and what you don't like. Right? So there's a lot of information we collect. And one thing we are very careful about is making sure that we don't reveal any personally identifiable information in any of the data we collect or store. It's anonymized. So even the data that is stored is anonymized. In Nokia, we had a very different problem when we were working. There were some pieces of information that are extremely sensitive. For example, how many phones sold when it was launched is a hugely sensitive piece of information. And CEO and only his direct SVPs had access to that kind of information. So in Nokia, we first had all of the distributed computing and Hadoop clusters within our premises. Then we moved all of them to AWS. The way we handled that there was making sure that, one, we had a hybrid cloud, as several speakers before me was mentioning, that we could easily transition loads from our cloud to the public cloud. And in the process, make sure that the data that is very sensitive is processed in your in-house cloud first, and it becomes less, for example, data about how many phones sold 1 month later is less sensitive than today evening when the phone is launched and how much phones were sold, right? It could affect the stock price of Nokia. It was that sensitive information. So then we figured really sensitive information never went into the public cloud until it can become less sensitive. And so there were several transition stages. You could have data that is highly sensitive in your in-house cloud. Then with some encryption, you take it to the public cloud. And after a certain point, you don't even encrypt it because it's no longer secure. So security also has timelines attached to it, time phase form. Right? So that's one of the ways. Two completely different ways. One is completely anonymize everything. I will never know who you are, for example, by your PID, personally identifiable information. The other way to do it is look at sensitivity and security as a time series. Very sensitive today morning, less sensitive a week from now. Encrypt it and put it in. Completely not at all sensitive after that. Because encryption always has a cost. That's the trade-off, right? When you encrypt something, you always have to decrypt, and there's a huge added cost for you to do the process. So that's how we handle it in Nokia. A couple of ways.
Thank you so much, Sreen. Staying on the same topic of security, I know this refuses to die away. Every time we speak of cloud, we speak of security. Is this really hyped much more than the actual factual or truth in it? Jayanta, can you probably give us two answers? One is, as a user organization, what do you expect the service provider to give you? What kind of comfort you need from him on the security? And second, some of success stories, if you can share with us how you have effectively deployed things on cloud or on mobile devices, and also manage security from that perspective.
Yeah, particularly SR, we started our cloud journey around 4-5 years back, and it started with a wrong example, means that experience was not good, and we acquired a refinery in Stanlow, UK, and management gave us 3 months time to migrate all the SAP data, and which was running an IBM platform, and we don't have much expertise or much time to migrate that data to other service provider or India or our own data center. And what we have done is that in a hurry we have gone ahead and we engaged a cloud partner in UK, and he told that within 2 months I can migrate all the data, I can give this SLA and everything, and that was the first experience for us also. And we have gone ahead and migrated all the data, and fun started afterwards. It's real fun. And some of the issues we started facing, like a simple password reset, it used to take 3 days. Means, since we are not managing entire cloud platform, and they are taking 3 days for simple resetting the password, and everything it is an incident for them. And we used to pay the per incident cost. And Afterwards, what happened, we are not spent enough time on exit strategy. And when we wanted to bring the data back after 1 year, means we started our discussion 30 days prior to contract termination day. And since it's not well written in the contract, cloud service providers started asking the hefty money. Saying that if you want this data, I can give a cartridge with this cost and all. And for us, risk is that we need to complete the transition within a month's time. And if you are not doing, then you need to extend the contract for 1 more year. So there is no clause for doing this for 1 month, 2 months, or 6 months. And ultimately, we have paid that money and we got the cartridge. It's a simple backup cartridge, and we have paid that money. That's the reason, once again I'm telling, it's a cloud, it is very good for improving the productivity, scalability, reliability, everything it will give. If we don't have a right exit strategy, then it's up to us to face that challenge. Now we are spending almost 60% of our time on writing the exit strategy. Means how vendor is going to secure that data, how to bring back. Means when I want to change the service provider from A to B, how we are going to change the data in what format and how it is seamlessly going to happen. And some of the example I'm going to share, we have, as I told you, we have around 200 companies and we have 60 boards today. And this board meeting is happening every quarterly. You know, as one board meeting, then you need to print a lot of papers. It goes in 50,000, 60,000 kind of pages with multiple copies, multiple board members, and last moment change and all those things. And what we have done is that we bought a board books app. It is a real mobility and a cloud kind of solution we have implemented. Here, what is board books application is hosted on their own cloud, and we have given iPads to all the board members, and we have trained them. Now all the critical sensitive documents for board meeting we are uploading on board books within the encryption format. It's encrypted and the key is with us. Means as a customer I can change the key also. And all the documents they are accessing from board books cloud this one platform. And in last 3-4 board meetings we are not printed a single page. It's almost we are saving on quarterly basis around 10 to 11 lakhs printing pages using means we are not printing a single page. This is one of the application. Second application we have launched is training people. Like a lot of senior people, they are very busy and they can't go through training material on different subjects. What we do is that we use a solution called Drona, and where we upload all the videos on training, on corporate communication, and all the important senior management message and all. And people can anywhere at any time they can access and they can watch. It's both online and offline capabilities available today. Since we have a own video channel, means SR got a studio like NDTV today in our in-house premise, and all the communication to end user it's on video. We don't have an intranet portal, and a lot of events which is happening across the globe, or any senior management message, any new joinee, senior cadre employees joining us, he can go to our studio, he can introduce him. We are creating a 3-minute snippet, and we are streaming that one to all the users on multiple devices, means on their laptop, iPad, or smartphone, and it's available on YouTube, and it's available on Facebook also. So this kind of videos we are streaming, and people can watch it any time. That is one of the example. And fourth part I am going to talk about success factor. Means we started our success factor journey around 4 years back, and management direction for us is that before this March 31st, that's year-end closing, we need to launch a performance management means application, and it was an impossible task for IT to go ahead and buy servers and build the process and implement that kind of solution. And we are looking for a solution outside. And that time SuccessFactors was not, they are not entered India or is not acquired by SAP. and we found a SuccessFactors was the right solution. Some of the benefits what we got, and speed of delivery means that whatever time it gave to us, it's 3 months time, we have launched these 3 modules. Means since it is SuccessFactors is a global organization, they bought the best practice on table, HR best practice. Whatever customization we wanted to do, it was minimal. And second was speed of delivery. Means there is no hardware procurement, installation, configuration, there is nothing. Since it is rolled out for all the group companies, major thing what we achieved is a process standardization. Means everybody using same platform. The process is standardized across the group now. And based on this experience, we have gone ahead and bought all the modules now. And that was the instruction for us to implement everything in 5 months time. And it was very clear that go ahead with the best practice. Don't implement your own customized rules and everything. Means, that is possible only when you are going with a cloud kind of SaaS application. These are some of the things. And security side means all the data it's encrypted is part of contract. And since we are using a hybrid cloud, we have gone ahead and implemented multiple security solutions and appliances. And third party, they are doing the audit for us, and they are doing the certification part.
Thank you so much, Jayanta. Those are extremely valuable examples for all of us to probably look within and figure out if there are some kind of use cases that we can follow. I want to move to a slightly different topic. You know, all of us have heard of use of analytics from a supply chain optimization, use of analytics from sentiment analysis, predictive analytics, social media trending. How does this play a role in the whole cloud environment? So Neil, can you probably throw some light how effective analytics can be used for managing your entire cloud service or managing the entire data center operations?
From a service provider point of view? Yeah, look, I suppose it's all about balancing the resources, the same as a CIO can do now in the cloud. They know when their peak demand is. And in fact, a company which is more global probably has a more steady state demand on resources than a localized company. It's the same for a data center operator. Analytics is just as important for a cloud service provider as it is for an enterprise that's using the cloud and doing their own data analytics. I'll give you an example. The data center has power demands, and when we talk about reliability and we talk about security, there's no point in talking about those factors unless you can provide 24/7 by 365 uptime. And whilst we might talk about 99.985 or 99.995 or whatever it might be in terms of uptime, the fact of the matter is no one's going to sit there for 17 days in a year or whatever it is and say, oh no, it's okay, that was within the SLA. The thing that's important about, from a cloud service provider point of view, is we too have to balance loads, and therefore what the analytics enables us to do from a cloud point of view is ensure that in a shared infrastructure model, which is essentially what the cloud is, when you have a multi-tenant situation, not all of your customers are using or putting a demand or a load onto that infrastructure, onto a platform at the same time in the same way. I'll give you one example in terms of bandwidth. It's not, when you partition bandwidth, giving access to the cloud, as a cloud service provider, you have to have the analytical capability to be able to determine when you need to expand the pipe and when you can afford to shrink the pipe. So we do our own demand analysis as the customer base grows in the cloud. And there's a lot of yarn out there about the pros and cons of, or the differences between private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud that NetMagic spoke about, but Karan spoke about before. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter what the contract says. The expectation is that regardless of whether it's in the cloud or it's dedicated infrastructure, it's a combination of two, you have to be able to provide the service as is required by the business. And if you can't, then the CIO and the board will then question whether or not the decision to go down the cloud path is, was the right one. So I think that, I don't want to take too much longer on it, but the fact is that we use the analytics just as much as an enterprise uses its analytics to determine what its customers are doing.
Nathan, if I could add to that very,
Sure.
very quickly. What Neil mentioned is actually exactly spot on. And analytics plays a very, very critical role for the service provider, possibly, as much, if not more, than it does for the enterprise. I'll give you a small example. We host today in the cloud, when I say cloud, I mean both public, private, and hybrid, as well as on bare metal, more than 90% of India's online retail, e-commerce, B2C traffic. So whether it's the Flipkarts of the world or the Make My Trips, or your travel portals, or your Jabongs, or your ShopClues, and all of these guys. Now, let's look at December. Every year, these guys have that great online shopping festival sale. Can you imagine the kind of workloads, how they accelerate during that 2-week period? It's crazy. You've got suddenly, customers who go from 100 VMs in the cloud to 500 VMs in the cloud. Myntra is one of our customers, and they ordered just for December to Jan 500 additional servers. Now, I'm sorry, but I don't care what your end business is. Unless your end business is IT, you're not going to have that kind of infrastructure just lying around waiting for an unpredictable or a semi-predictable spike in demand. So the bottom line is the analytics will help you as a service provider forecast what kind of loads you're going to get, when you're going to get them, when you're going to run out of capacity on compute, network, and storage. And if you can't cater to unpredictable loads for the thousands of customers and the several tens of thousands of VMs that we host, you've got no business being a cloud service provider.
Thank you so much, Karan, to add on to Neil's advice on this. And I think there's a lot for all of us as user organizations to pick from this and figure out those hidden gems which they spoke of. We very well have the similar use cases when we are managing our own infrastructure. Let's just quickly move on to our last topic for discussion is around enterprise mobility. The reason I'm specifying on enterprise mobility, because in my personal view, it's a very abused word. We don't really know what enterprise mobility is. Is it just a collaboration that we have emails and Yammers and corporate social networks on the mobile? Is it more about using handheld devices to do a stock take and inventory count? Is it more about using app kind of a way to interact with customers? Sunil, probably can you throw some light on what this entire concept of enterprise mobility is?
See, in the earlier days, in order to connect any nook and corner of your organization, it was pretty tough. You have to organize connectivity, you have to look at all the local conditions, operators, etc., etc. But now with mobility, connecting really doesn't become my botheration. Finding the last mile, the job of finding the last mile has shifted to the end user. Whichever geography they are operating into, because of the availability of mobility, because of availability of at least edge connectivity across practically most of the world, even that I have traveled, even in backward or very difficult conditions, etc., edge connectivity is definitely available. So I look at mobility in order to connect the geographies all across, connecting the people who are out there in the field, who are not in any offices, not just providing them a data card or laptop, but providing them the solutions on their smartphones. Or I even look at a much faster connectivity as in terms of getting them up and running on any enterprise solutions. That's what I look at really mobility from all those perspectives.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Karan, can you probably just take about 30 seconds and
Sure.
give a service provider view on this whole concept of mobility?
I'm glad you asked, because there's two aspects to mobility and they mean very, very different things. They're like chalk and cheese. There's what Sunil spoke about, which is your end user application mobility. And then there's a very different kind of mobility, which is a very different kettle of fish, which is workload mobility. So look, today, most of us, we've got 3 different kinds of clouds running. We've got public, private, and hybrid clouds. Now, for a moment, I'm only talking about infrastructure as a service, okay? I'm not talking about software as a service. Going by the audience in this room, I think the bulk of you are probably, even though you may have some software as a service running, the bulk of your applications are probably on an infrastructure as a service platform. Now, when you talk about workload mobility, you can split it into 3 ways. moving from your on-premise private cloud into the public cloud and then back again for unpredictable, peak workloads. Moving from one private cloud which is on-premise into, say, a service provider's private cloud, which you could do with Neil or with NetMagic. So you've got two private clouds running, and how do you move from an on-premise private cloud into a service provider's private cloud and then back again? And the third is you've got two public clouds running. Say you've got one cloud with Nextra, one cloud with NetMagic. Now you want to move workloads between these. That's where application and workload mobility comes in. And it's a lot easier said than done because there's several dependencies. There's a dependency on the individual provider's technology stacks. There's dependencies on your application. There's dependencies on something as mundane as the configurations of the VMs. So there is we're seeing a lot of advancements in the space. Tools like Rivermeadow, for example, allow you to do, enterprise workload mobility where you can take it from an on-premise private cloud into the public cloud, back again, move it somewhere else, cool it down, warm it up, and you can do all of this pretty much at the click of a button. Will that give you 100% seamless automated workload mobility? The answer is not today. Are we going to get there maybe in the next 12, 18 months? Yes, probably.
Thank you so much. I think this is a very different way of looking at mobility beyond the end user side. Coming back to end user side of the mobility story, Chit, can you probably throw some of your experiences of some great success stories of using mobility?
Yeah, a couple of them. So to us, mobility in the environments I have worked in, mobility meant two things. One is the ability for any organization to be able to service their customers in whatever medium the customer chooses to interact with the company. Right? So what he was talking about was the ability for an organization at its business level to be able to have mobility in terms of its operations. The other way of looking at it is how the company or the industry or the organization interacts with its customers. So we've moved away from doing everything on our PC to using mobile. So for me today, the biggest problem in DataZoo that we have is not only the ability for us to be able to service the customers in the mobiles, but also be aware that the same customer can use multiple devices and have an ability to track them across. A simple example. So let's say you use a mobile, you come, we serve you an ad, and then half an hour later, you go back to your iPad, and then bring up the same piece. We don't want to serve you the same ad, especially if you have not clicked on that ad, right? So we showed you something, you didn't click it, it really means you don't care about it. Now if I show you the same thing again on another device, just because I treat you as a different customer, I've lost the ability to be able to monetize a hugely valuable asset on which I have to make money in order to survive. So to us, the mobility therefore means the ability to be able to interface with customers, not just across one device, but across multiple devices, and having all of that infrastructure in place to manage that. It's a huge challenge. As several people have, we are slowly breaking barriers in that we have made some progress in terms of identifying our customers cross-device. And that's been a huge bet in terms of, hey, can I really identify him as him whenever he uses a Android device versus an iPad tablet. Right, so that is the biggest challenge.
Thank you so much. I hope the panel was able to give you some inputs. I just have one final question for Uday. So there are a number of times in this conversation in the last 45 minutes, we spoke of the whole IT's perspective, business perspective, and CFO perspective. The whole CFO perspective, and if I'm investing in something, what about ROI? Though you will talk of flexibility, though you will talk of number of benefits from a employee or user or customer standpoint, is it really possible to look at ROI in mobility space? And if it is, I mean, how does one arrive at that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a $1 million or a $1 billion question, depending on what kind of investments are happening. But if you consider mobility and cloud together, I think the first benefit that we get of implementing mobile solutions, or let me say innovative solutions on cloud, is that you are able to address the quick turnaround time. You can very quickly provision development servers, test servers, production environments, and go live instead of waiting for the time which will take to provision the same things in a traditional way. And also that gives you a great amount of cost benefit, because you have the freedom to experiment. You can scale up, scale down, you can add in different geographies depending on who is your cloud provider, and that gives you a great freedom to reach out to a large number of end users without spending a lot of money. So I think that's a great cost benefit. In terms of enriching user experience and connecting all the devices, I think the actual calculation of ROI is extremely difficult. It reminds me of the questions we heard 20-25 years ago, when people used to say, what's the ROI in putting an EPA BX in the organization? You know, you are going to spend a lot of money in bringing that, and so everybody will have a phone on their desk, and then the same question was repeated for IP telephony, and the same question will get repeated here. But I think the broadening of the business horizons and the overall business benefits are immense, and this is the way where the technology is driving. So I think there is really no option but to go there.
Thank you so much, Uday. I don't want to keep you away from your food for long. We've done with our session. I hope you found it useful. We did cover a number of topics. We tried to decipher what enterprise mobility is. We looked at what are the considerations one should probably look at before deciding to outsource or move certain things to a cloud environment. And probably if there are any ways, Uday was able to throw some light on how do I typically calculate an ROI on this. I appreciate your time. On behalf of the entire the esteemed panelists here, we thank you for giving us a patient listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. May I request you to please honor our panel with mementos. We'll start with the audience's right, starting with the gentleman to your extreme left. Senior Director Engineering, Datashu, Chid Kolangode. Moving on to Sunil Aradhya of RPG, Karan Kaplani. So to your other side, we have Neil Pollock. Next to Neil, we have the Global Head IMS Business Unit, L&T Infotech, Uday Garpure. And last but not least, CIO SR, Jayanta Prabhu. May I request Content Head, Times Conferences Limited, Rajesh Kupchandani, to do us the honors for this to our moderator, to Mr. Mehta. May I please request the project head and the panel to give us a photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for this panel. Great information and finishing on time.